Hello, hosted by Make More Noise. And this week we have Deb Philman, who runs the YouTube channel The Reason We Learn, which is raising awareness about the politicisation of the public school curriculum in the USA. And Thistle Peterson, who is a lesbian feminist newscaster at WLRN. She has just released an album which is available on her website, which we'll actually be linking below. And we're also having Joan, who is a member of the group Resistance Lesbian, who made weekend after crashing Paris Pride. We've got Chinzia as well, which is, one of our favourite regulars that we have here. So I'm going to start with, I think I'll start with Joan, actually. I'm really interested in what, if you don't mind giving us a little update.
Yes, so I'm John from Resistance Lesbienne from France. This is a new group. It was created something like a month ago just for the action in Paris for the Pride. So the goal was to bring some lesbian radical feminists in a Pride to say that we exist and that there are some lesbians that are not queer and that lesbians don't like penises, and also to bring a voice against the transition of the non-feminine lesbians that are taken by the queers for boys and for trans men and everything.
That sounds really good. I mean, what got you? Can I just ask you really quickly, what got you into this?
I was friend with another radical lesbian, and we were also in touch with Get the Out, the group Get the Out, who already did some action in the London Pride. And so I was really enthusiastic about the fact that lesbians don't have nothing in common with gay men or with trans people, because being lesbian is just a sexual orientation, and gay men are also oppressors, and lesbians live misogyny every day. So we wanted to do something similar in France. As there was no gender critical public group. There was a radical feminist public group, but it was not especially for the gender criticism, and there was nothing for lesbians. And the only associations for lesbian in France, everything was very queer, and there was some man in identifying themselves as trans women in those groups, so it was awkward.
Yeah, I can imagine. So would you say in France, where you are at the moment, that the atmosphere around being critical of this ideology, especially lesbian women?
What? Sorry, I didn't hear.
Would you say that it's quite hostile towards lesbian women where you are?
Yes, yes, it's really hard, and that's what we saw during the action, and even after the action, we receive messages every day saying that we are transphobic, and saying that lesbian can like dicks and everything. I even received a message saying that each woman, even lesbians, had a need of penises during the orgasm. And I was like, oh, I need to puke.
That's absolutely disgusting.
Yes.
In general, but it's disgusting. It's more disgusting to say it to or about lesbians, in my opinion. Deb, you're shaking your head. You've got something to say.
I'm so appalled that there are not more voices being raised from, traditionally liberal quarters at the erasure of human beings. It's like appalling to me. I mean, I'm hearing this and I just I don't understand. Like, where did everybody go? Did they crawl under a rock and hide? I'm straight and I'm appalled. I feel like, I've gotten more active in these issues since this trans ideology took over and started erasing people, because nobody else is saying anything. I used to be like, yeah, right on. Yeah, right, like from the wings, because it seems to be covered. But now I'm like, where'd y'all go? I'm all alone up here. It's kind of, I'm just in awe at the cowardice of more people, more women, more just people in general, just traditionally liberal voices. And there should be a roar. It shouldn't be a quiet whispering. It should just be a roar right now. And I'm not hearing it. And I'm angry for you, for everyone, for humankind. This is wrong.
No one's talking, but there are a lot of people who, in fact, are with us. Like we say our arguments and our ideas, and everyone who is not in the queer community is like, yes, that's an evidence, and we're like, no, it's no more an evidence. Look at the Pride and look at the queer politics. Right. But yes, even during the Pride, there were some 40 years old lesbians who were not affected by the queer community, who went to sing with us our slogans, and there were like lesbians everywhere, penises nowhere, and everyone was happy until a man came and aggressed us.
There's sorry, Chinzia, what was you about to say?
Yeah, sorry, in the beginning, I did see cars hooting you. You were being praised by cars going past. You did get support at first in the video that we've seen of you, which is brilliant. So on the streets, they are supporting you. I have been attacked myself, like you and your friends. So I think you're incredibly brave and really tough, and you're inspiring.
Thank you.
You really are. You're truly inspiring. And what are your future projects? What are you, going to continue taking it to the streets?
I think we would like to continue bringing this subject into the Pride and into the queer community, not to do just a stupid provocation or something, but to talk to young lesbians who are not active queer, but just queer because it sounds cool, and we want to bring them a voice and to say, you're not, when you're lesbian, you don't have to be queer, and you can be something else. And we want to bring this debate outside the queer sphere too. And I don't know, maybe someday create again some women fest or something.
Isn't it mad that we already had lesbian only spaces and women only spaces, and we're now, maybe one day we'll have a woman space or a woman festival or woman only thing all over again, as if it never happened in the first place. It just feels surreal to me to be even talking about it.
That's how I feel. I feel like I said, I feel like I went to sleep one night and woke up and progress was erased. It's like kind of went in a circle and like, wait, what? You're supposed to. The goal, I thought, was just choice and acceptance of like, you are you, an individual, and you make your own decisions. And the idea that anyone, they're contradicting themselves, to say you must validate me at your own expense, that's tyranny. That's a totalitarian mindset. That's not anything to do with acceptance or openness. And they're just contradicting themselves. They're tyrants and misogynists, obviously. But like I said, I don't understand why there's not more of an organized, when I say organized, I mean people in positions of official leadership who are quite literally there to represent, rights and so forth. When rhetoric like this comes out, I don't understand why journalists, for example, op-ed writers and so forth, are not taking this up and saying this is wrong. I mean, there's so many feminist writers and people out there. I'm just at a loss. Like, why? I'm so impressed that you've done this, and it is very courageous. But I would have hoped there'd be more powerful allies at this point, and that's what's concerning to me.
I wanted to ask as well, Joan, when you, sorry, I've got some dogs here. When you Irish Pride, were you scared at all? Were you worried about being attacked or meeting hostility in any sort of way?
I think I was more scared before the action because I was not in the crowd, and I was just asking myself lots of questions like how many people will be there? Are we gonna walk 5 minutes and then being ejected, or are we gonna stay during all the march? And yes, but when the man came and started to harass us, I was more angry than fearing him, because we were already a group, and we had 40 minutes to walk and to scream our slogans. So we had a big, strong energy, and we already felt more confident. So yes, and the fact that there was also the lesbian who came to sing with us, it was it was pleasant to see, because it was like we knew that we could have some support and some help if we needed some help.
That's good to know that you felt supported as well, and you knew that you could get help. That is good to know.
Yeah.
What other social media platforms are you on? I've seen you on Twitter and Facebook. Are you on Instagram?
Yes, we are. And we also have a website.
Oh, you have what's the website called? And we'll put a link in the bottom.
It's Résistance lesbienne.fr.
I hope all young lesbians out there join you. I really do. And
we hope to.
You're amazing women. Amazing. Very brave.
I think I like you step up, and especially if it's on video and it goes online, you do have such a big impact. I don't think you realise how much that influences other young women. So I think it's really, really brave what you did. And I know brave's a word that's overused, but I think it's...
Yes, thank you.
That's all right.
We hope that young lesbians see us and get to know that if they are considered as masculine, they are not men, and they are still women, and they are still lesbians, and we love them, and we want them to become to become strong and powerful lesbians.
I think that's a great message, especially for the young women nowadays, because I do think there's a lot of pressure to, like you said, if you're presenting in a masculine way or wearing masculine clothes, or you get a short haircut, you feel like you can't say that. I really hope that's not the case for a lot of young women, but I know it is. So, okay, I'm gonna ask Thistle if you would like to talk to us about what you've got to tell us.
Yeah, sure. So our show, because June in the United States is Pride Month, so we just got another member of the WLRN collective on board named Aurora Linnea, and she's a young lesbian feminist from Maine, and she happens to be a fantastic writer, and she penned a piece called Pride, corporate patriarchy's celebration in the streets. And it's her in the beginning, the first paragraph, she's just trying to like walk home from work, and she's in the middle of a pride parade, and there's like these sparkling penises that shower down, and one gets stuck in her shoe, and it's just hilarious writing. And it should just be like, I don't know, fiction, but it's truth is stranger than fiction sometimes. And she notes all these corporate entities like Doritos and Listerine and all these companies, Coca-Cola, that are putting out rainbow products for Pride Month, and how lesbians are just totally erased from all of that, and that it's just a big male pride fest. And then we just did a show on it as well with Julia Beck and Angela Wilde. And we release our shows every first Thursday of the month. And there's 7 of us in the collective now, and we've been doing this for 5 years. So, and the reason that we even started is because we were silenced, getting back to what Deb was talking about a little bit, which is, I think, part of the reason, Deb, we don't hear about these things is because of censorship, like straight up in the press. There are moneyed interests that want to keep our voices silenced. And trans activism a few years ago in my town was vicious. And a man who's an autogynephilic man who I knew personally before he transitioned, he fixated on me and my entire town. And that was the picture actually that I was going to share of the dude that I shared to all of you. Maybe I don't need to bother with that, but just this man who was obsessed with taking selfies with lots of makeup on his face, and like he did GoFundMes for estrogen treatments and all of this shit. And he started a band called Dumpster Dick, okay? And he was the lead singer in this band, and he was being advertised in regular media as if nothing. Meanwhile, he's launching campaigns against me online, calling me a hateful bigot, transphobic, all these things, because I interviewed Sheila Jeffries on the community radio station, and so it was surreal. It was surreal, but I mean, things are so surreal still 5 years later. Things are extremely surreal, but I feel like that surreality is helping to wake people up. I hope you all will read Aurora Linea's article. It's so good. It's just like, no, I do not want the rainbow sparkle penises raining down on me and the unicorn across the street to be, vomiting rainbows on the pavement. That's not the kind of future I want to see our entire, it's like the entire society, because it's so corporate, is grabbing onto this. And that's why also I think that there's a larger agenda, which is, and Jennifer Billick can talk about that, by following the money. And she also does a regular report now, an exclusive for WLRN, a report on the gender industry. But I promised myself that I was going to talk about my music. I was blacklisted and canceled in my town. I had a regular show with a band. I was touring. I had various musicians that I used to always just be able to play with and have fun. And then the trans activist organized by that man named Christine Lane. I just like to say his name because he used to say my name all the time, and I never would say his name. He used to put my name and my picture up all over the place and call me a hateful bigot and call hundreds of people to not go to my shows and call the venues and tell them that I'm, evil incarnate and stuff. And they believed him. I'm banned at a neighborhood center. I'm banned at a major music venue. I'm no longer able to play shows. Anyway, so my music is a big deal. It has been to me, and it was before I became a feminist and before WLRN. And so I finally, during COVID, I had some time, and I think you call it in the UK being on the dole, right? Like when you get unemployment. And I'm on the dole. And so I connected with an old friend of mine who's a big Beatles fan and loves music and can play any instrument. And I play the guitar and sing, and I write original songs. And I am collaborating with a new feminist on the scene named Laura Julian. Remember that name? She's I met her at the Women Picket DC event, and then she sings harmony lines on this snippet of a song that I just released today for my fundraiser for the album that actually has not come out yet. And I'm remembering to click on share audio, but I'm gonna just share this with you. And because it's about lesbian visibility in the sense of us acknowledging ourselves and seeing ourselves and feeding ourselves and allowing ourselves to be with one another in community and seeing each other, and how we really, as women, are trained to negate the self, to put others before ourselves. And in that way, we neglect ourselves as citizens, as talented musicians, as poets, as, you know, fully actualized people. And so this song is about that. And I'm just going to play a little snippet. There's a wolf staring at me from the corner of my mind. She's panting and growling and howling. Why don't you see me? And why won't you feed me? Her eyes glow in the dark. After a while.
That was beautiful, Thistle.
Thank
My garden vibes. Lesbian chill. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Did you?
Whoops. Sorry. This is hang on, let me get rid of that. Okay. Oh, oops.
Hello.
Okay.
You've done it, Thistle.
Yeah.
So I've read that you have faced, just bullshit lies since 2012. This is how long you've been dealing with the cancellation. So did you feel that writing this music and this album was a bit of therapy to deal with all that trauma? Because it does sound like it was traumatizing.
Yes. And I was like Sor Juana Inés de la Cruz, if you know anything about her, her famous poem, it's Sueño. I can't remember the beginning. I studied Spanish literature a long time ago, but she wrote sort of in a code. She was a physicist. She was an intellectual. She was a writer. She was a poet. I think she was also like a painter. And back in the 1600s, when she was a nun, when she was a young woman in Mexico, you either got married or you became a nun. And so she chose to be a nun. And there were all these requirements still on her being as a nun. And so she wrote in code, she wrote this beautiful, La vida es sueño. She wrote this beautiful poem. And if you didn't know her situation, you wouldn't know exactly what she's talking about. And a lot of the lyrics of the songs that have been very therapeutic, I wrote a song called Warrior's Lullaby, and it was to comfort myself. And I don't say explicitly, trans activists did this and that to me, but you kind of can get that when you know my story. So yeah, the songs definitely were therapeutic. to write and to perform.
The album is called From Dross to Gold, is that right?
Dross into Gold.
Dross into Gold.
I was commissioned by Elizabeth Miller, who runs the Chicago Feminist Salon, and she also is the contributing editor of this new anthology, which I wish I had it right next to me. Hang on one second, I think I've got it right here. This new anthology called Spinning and Weaving, and the song is that song is so cool because she's like, hey, write a song for my book, you know, to celebrate it, and it'll be good for your music and it'll be good for me. And I was like, okay. And so I took the challenge and ended up really enjoying and she wrote like a stream of consciousness as the editor of the book. She wrote like a bunch of words all together, and I took those words and I spun and I wove them into the song Dross into Gold. And so yeah, that's the name of the album, and it's a collection of 12 songs. And yeah.
Well, you're a true artist. They're so beautiful. And do you feel safe in your city? And Joan as well, do you feel safe where you live?
I mean, I don't know. Not emotionally safe, certainly. Definitely not emotionally safe. I don't know. I don't live in fear. I run the community garden here in my neighborhood, and all the neighbors know me, and they know I'm a TERF and stuff. And there are trans activists that live in this building or near here. And I've had like some sticker battles with them and stuff, but they've threatened me with violence online. And very explicitly and directly to me. That's true. And that's scared me. And I've called the police. And I have a relationship with a local police officer in my neighborhood who, you know, if there's a problem, I feel like I can, and he's aware of this issue. He followed the whole thing in Seattle with the Seattle police being really cued to what was going on with the public library talk and how the police actually were on the side of the women. And he watched that whole thing and he's like, no, it's not cool that these men are masquerading as women and threatening you with violence. Like that's not okay, and I'll protect you. And you know what I mean? So I think I feel more emotionally unsafe than physically unsafe. Like I can't play open mics. It's hard for me. I went to a music party though. I got invited to a musician's music party. This woman who plays the cello, and she has a PhD in brain chemistry. She studies the impact of meditation on the brain, and she plays the cello, and she has this beautiful yard. I was invited, and it was a musician's party for musicians, and we all jammed, and I was so thankful. And I never talked about the whole trans thing at all. The whole time I was there, I was just, you know what I mean? Like sometimes, I don't know, people know me that way. Yeah. And I used to want to talk about it, but now I just don't even want to talk. I just want to be like, I don't care. I hate you. I don't care. Just leave me alone. You know, like, what am I doing? It's nothing. It's not that big of a deal to have like a little radio show with some lesbians on it. Like, I don't know.
A moment of freedom. A moment of freedom for you, Crystal. Joan, were the police helpful towards you?
At the beginning, the police did nothing. In fact, they were just looking at us and staying immobile, and they just took the man away when he was already eating us. And then some friends of the man came, and they was threatening us with signs and with words, and even with coming too close, even if we were like, no, you have to stay away. And the police was looking at the scene, but they did nothing. They just did something one time. And yes, and to come back to the feeling of safety in the town, I don't know if it's the same for every radical feminist who does some actions, but for me, it's a veritable disaster. Like on last week, I had pictures of myself posted in every Instagram stories of people that I know, of people that know me from other people, etc. And with threats and with words like, "Oh, don't follow this horrible transphobic radical feminist." And it's at the point that I receive some threats from people that didn't talk to me for like 10 years, and now they're coming back to tell me that I'm a horrible transphobic person, and that if I am a lesbian who don't like penises, well, I'm not a true lesbian, I'm a transphobic lesbian. And yeah, that's a very fearful environment because um, it's a small town in which I'm living. So every time that I come out, I'm sure I will see someone that hates me and that wants me to die and that told me that they wanted me to die. So right now, I don't know how to deal with that.
Yeah, I hear you, Joan. That's the same way for me, like going to the grocery store. And after a while, because it's been happening for so long, I just don't even care. I just, just ignoring them and just going about my business has really helped me. I don't know, but in the heat of the moment, like when I received the violent threats directly to me, I was definitely not okay for a while. It took a while.
Yes, it's hard.
Have you not taken any sort of legal action against the activists who are threatening you and making you feel uncomfortable in your own town?
I think it would be something useless and more stressful than something else because I think the police would just say, okay, tell us if something more happened, but it will stay death threats on internet. And for me, that's something, but for the police, they can't do anything and they don't want to do anything. So I don't
What
know.
about just making a record with the police, Joan, so that they have it on record?
Yes.
I recommend, I don't know what the police are like there, but that's part of the reason why I always tell the police. Just so they have
it's all about record keeping.
Sure.
Okay. I really hate what's happened to both of you. I think it's absolutely disgusting. It's very close to my heart because of what I've been going through, but I can't really talk about my situation much. So I won't go into feel for both of you because I know what it's like.
Yeah, and we're resilient. I mean, Joan's organization is Lesbian Resistance, which you have to be resilient to resist. And I'm putting out an album, it's like, I'm not going to let them destroy me, like we can't. I know violence works. It works to keep people afraid. It works to keep people in their homes and stuff like that.
Even just the threat of it. Even just the threat of it works. Of course it does.
At the same time, like we need each other, and I think the harder they push, the more we push back. Like 5 years ago when I started WLRN, there was no lesbian resistance thing happening at Pride in Paris. The London Pride thing had not happened. We were all like, oh my God, let's not talk about trans on the first show. Let's just ease our audience into it. Like it was a different atmosphere 5 years ago. And I think that the cat is out of the bag and that people are starting to really notice how awry things have gone. I mean, you can't walk into a Target, which is a major department store here in the United States, without seeing a pride display with like a little girl wearing a shirt that's all rainbows that says, "Love is love," you know, and like just really crazy proportions. And I don't know. I think that there's a lot of. What does it feel like to you, Joan? Do you feel like you've got a peer group that's solid? Like your solidarity is, you're close to one another. You've got each other's backs. You've got like energy amongst, you know, or do you feel more isolated?
No, I think that we're a strong group, and we did a great job to find each other, in fact. And after the action, we did see each other again, and it was a moment of peace and of respiration, because we could take our breath back and say, okay, we have a lot of hate and a lot of threats, but we are still together, we are still Resistance Lesbienne, and we will still go on and still exist, even if queers don't want us to exist and want us to die.
And how many are in your group? How many are in your group, Joan?
I think we're a little more of 10, something like 10, 11.
And most of the women are from around the Paris area?
No, we are from everywhere in France, so
Okay.
so it's great.
Well, you cannot let them destroy lesbianism. That's what queer wants to do, isn't it? Destroy it. And I believe you, Joan, that you and your team can do this. You're a tight unit.
And it's not just that, it's the destruction of what it is to be a woman. And I'm going to use that to segue into Deb, who's going to tell us what she's here for, because she has to go soon.
I'm so sorry. Okay, so I work in the realm of sort of education, K through 12 specifically. Sometimes I talk about university, but by that point, it's usually too late when it comes to some of these issues. I mean, that's not to say that individuals can't change the direction of their thoughts and their lives, but I'm trying to protect the most vulnerable. So my channel, The Reason We Learn, is focused on shining a light on some of the toxic ideology that's being brought into the schools by teachers who we thought were there to teach our kids how to read and write and do math and science and those sort of things. And we're now finding out they're doing what is sort of the equivalent of kind of therapy starting in kindergarten. And what we're seeing is, and one of the things I want to talk about today is something called social emotional learning, which is sort of an idea that started years ago, that in school, they could help students manage their emotions so they wouldn't have outbursts and behavior problems. They'd be better able to focus and learn. And what started, I think, with good intentions has morphed, as with many of these things, into a vehicle to break down personal boundaries with very young children for the purpose of grooming, to open up their minds to be more receptive to ideas they would never otherwise have even heard of, never mind adopted as their own, and for indoctrination into certain values and certain self-perceptions. And the thing that I'm really concerned about, and it kind of feeds into the queer stuff, is that they're taking, in particular, girls, they're doing for all children, but girls, the way it seems to be impacting girls is what we used to consider a tomboy. Okay, I was one. I could relate so much to what J.K. Rowling said, and this is her quote: "If I'd found community and sympathy online that I couldn't find in my immediate environment as a teen, I believe I could have been persuaded to turn myself into the son my father had openly said he'd prefer." Now what we're seeing is that the kids don't even have to go online. They just go to kindergarten, and their teacher will happily present them with materials, books, lesson plans that tell them their gender may not be their gender. Like, they just open that door, that their parents assigned it to them at birth. they don't even take the demographic information the parents have provided and treat it as something to be respected. They go ahead and introduce doubt as early as 5 years old. And there have been stories of little 5 and 6-year-old girls who are coming home and saying, well, I like to play with trucks and dirt and play baseball and this and that. And so does that mean I'm really a boy? And of course, there's a lot of pressure on parents to sort of indulge this or allow this to go on and allow this questioning and allow the teacher to have this kind of authority to keep feeding ideas to the child where, keep feeding questions, all in the name of acceptance. And yet we're never presented with any evidence that there's a problem. In other words, that there is a percentage of students who need this acceptance in the first place. And there's certainly no evidence that little children are being mean to each other because, let's say, a child legitimately comes to school and there is a, gender, sort of they're already transsexual or something. And there's no evidence that kids are being mean to each other. There's no evidence that this is a problem that needs to be solved. It's sort of like a solution in search of a problem. And so what we're seeing, and I know it's similar in the UK. Actually, it's been a problem possibly bigger and longer in the UK. So I've heard, is we're seeing more and more and more girls by the time they are preteen. It used to be teen, and now it's coming down in ages to preteen, like peer groups, whole peer groups coming out as trans, female to male. And I'm concerned that this curriculum, not just the explicit gender curriculum, the gender questioning curriculum starting in kindergarten, but also the curriculum about the social emotional learning, that where they're taking kids, even when they're not talking about gender, and they are talking about feelings and they're opening up this bond with the teacher, which I don't think is appropriate. I think if you have a child who is struggling to manage emotions in school and it's getting in the way of their learning, that can be dealt with offline. That would be a referral to a guidance counselor or for the parents to come in and maybe you work out a plan. But to treat the entire classroom full of children from K on and every year in every class, like we all need to start with the premise that we can't manage our emotions and we need teacher to help us with all kinds of activities, up to and including walking in the room at the beginning of the day and putting on a colored bracelet to announce to the world what our dominant emotion is that day. I think this is really dangerous for an empathetic child, for a child who is, on the sensitive side, a child who does not have very strong personal boundaries, might even come from a household where their boundaries might already be violated in some way. And I think they are already at risk. And the last thing they need is an adult in their life for 8 hours a day, chipping away at their individual boundary, emotional boundary, and making them be sort of open and exposed emotionally in a place that might already be, school is already challenging for kids. There's a lot going on. There's peers, there's learning, there's mom and dad aren't there, especially if we're talking the younger grades. It can be very stressful. And sometimes not sharing the emotions that you're feeling is appropriate. You shouldn't have to be encouraged all the time to have difficult or uncomfortable conversations. Sometimes you should be able to keep things to yourself. And as I said, I have daughters. I have 3 daughters, so I'm biased in the sense that I tend to focus more on how things affect girls than they affect boys, although I'm sure it affects them, both. But I see how it has affected my girls. They're no longer in public school, but I do know that they became more anxious. They became more self-critical. They became more self-doubting. And I see this happening in the schools in the United States, and I think it's going to feed some of these other things, like where kids are going to transition when they maybe shouldn't, where that's not their sincere desire. They're trying to please teacher, trying to please a doctor or a parent or even an activist or even a friend. It could be just a peer group pressure. Another little story to tell you is when freshman year in high school, my daughter, who's a very sensitive person, went to her homecoming dance with her best female friend who had already come out to her saying that she was, how did she put it? She was non-binary, I think she said at the time. But I think she also considers herself to be asexual is one of the things that she said. But they've been best friends since forever. So she said, let's go to this dance together. And they went. And my daughter was sort of hanging out with her and her new friends. This is their first year of high school. And they were all from the LGBT group of the time, but most of them in the group were either trans or queer. Okay. So they were, in other words, hostile to lesbians and hostile to straight women specifically. And my daughter is straight. And they kept badgering her, like, are you sure? Are you sure you're really straight? Are you sure about your gender? Are you sure about this? And she's like, yes. And they kind of wouldn't let up about it. And then they spent most of the time mocking other people at the dance. It was like they saw that as their position of strength, was to attack or go after other people. And, up to and including lesbians, because there were lesbian girls there on date, with their dates and so forth, as there were gay men there with their, students, male students. But for some reason, this particular group that was more queer leaning and trans leaning, because her friend was, not either. She's like, I'm queer, or I'm non-binary, whatever she said she was at the time. It was definitely not either gender. And my daughter called me and she said, can you come get me? I don't feel comfortable anymore. Like, she didn't feel like she was in danger, but she just said, I don't know how to be. Like, I don't even know who I am in this moment. It was kind of like this little crisis for her about, I think I know who I am, but I've had people for the last hour saying, are you sure you really know who you are? And when you're a teenager, that's when you're forming your identity and starting to like really understand yourself and define who you're attracted to, who you're not, whatever. And to have even your friends, largely, I believe, pressured by some of the people, like the advisor they had for the club, push you to question, just constantly like, no, you couldn't possibly know reality, or, that's what your parents say. That's not really true. You need to listen to us. And then to mock other people. She said, I don't even know if I know my friend anymore. Like, what has happened? And it took her quite a while to work through this. And what I'm concerned about is there's a girl of, at the time, 14. And now she's 17 and she's, solid again. She's homeschooled and she's like, I'm so glad I don't have to deal with that. But again, it's kindergarten. So when you have so much more wherewithal at 14 to withstand that kind of thing. Now imagine it's an adult. It's your teacher. Are you sure? Are you really sure? Like, that's what your parents assigned you as a gender. And so that's what we're seeing. And I think that the two things, the lessons in gender, I think what do they call it? There are lesson plans that Human Rights Campaign Foundation puts out, all these lesson plans for teachers to use. And they have things like lesson plans to create gender expansive classrooms and support transgender and non-binary students. We don't see support lesbian or gay students. It's specifically transgender and non-binary. Always. All the lesson plans are geared towards that, with a heavy emphasis on trans. And the students who seem to get the most attention to maybe you're not really your gender are the boyish girl, the girls who are a little more masculine presenting, or they like sports a lot, or whatever it may be. And like I said, I played on an all boys soccer team. I wore my hair short. I wore boys' clothes until I was 16 or 17. I literally shopped in the boys department. I was very uncomfortable in my own female skin to a large degree, I think, because I was raised primarily by my dad. My dad was a very, tough guy, and I was so desperate to earn his affection. And I know in my mind that this was all about, I'm going to be boyish so you'll love me, this kind of thing. And now imagine if someone got a hold of me. Imagine if my teacher, pulled me to the side and said, maybe you're not really a girl. You can choose, And, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, Debs, I didn't mean to interrupt you at
No.
all, but I was thinking, as you were saying about how in the school people are questioning your reality, is that something that cults do? Is that like a breaking down technique? Is that a culty thing?
100%. In fact, it's funny that you mentioned that, because I was studying cult steps today in preparation to make another video, and they the steps that cults use, one of them is absolutely breaking down your sense of identity. Now, if you're a kindergartner, you don't have one. Your identity is what your parents have told you. You're my daughter and your name is this. And, you have a brother or a sister and you live here. And I mean, your identity is very narrow and made up by these few little things that you know about yourself because you're new here. You're 5. And to come at a child at that point and start telling them to question their identity is to give them an identity. There's no other way to look at it. You are not questioning, you're replacing. And because they spend so many more hours a day than the parents, you're now pitting this poor little child. You're not only breaking down whatever boundaries they might have, those fledgling boundaries that they have, because they're still very much dependent on mom and dad and family, or mom and mom or whoever, but they're also putting the rift. They're creating a rift. So then I'm like, maybe I don't trust you, mom. Maybe I don't trust that this is real. Maybe you just want this because and it's not what I want. And so they're damaging family relationships or interfering with family dynamics. They're also normalizing certain kinds of parental dysfunction, in my opinion. So if you have a parent who's projecting dysfunction onto their child, okay, for example, let's say my dad really did want that son. Okay, let's say we were in this present time and he saw an avenue to get that boy, okay, or a mom for that matter. Sees, I didn't want a daughter, because there are some mothers, it's a kind of personality disorder, who feel in competition with their daughters. My own mother, thank God, left, because at the age of 14, she revealed to me her true self when I went to see her. And she said, you were always scheming against me from the time you were 3 to have your father all to yourself. Imagine she'd still been in my life and had seen me behave the tomboy, and we were alive now. Oh, quick way to get rid of my daughter. She's now my son, right? So obviously that's extremely rare. But what I'm saying is we are now rewarding and praising and normalizing things that might be abuse, and we won't know it. We won't even recognize it, because we're
And
giving
not only
just
that, when we're not allowed to call it out either.
No, we're not allowed to even question it. Like a 5-year-old can question their gender to the point of getting on medication and preparing for surgery. But adults in the midst, other relatives, concerned for grandparents, whatever, can't question what's going on, or you're, a transphobe, you're a hateful person.
Harmful, heteronormative, and it is the
Correct.
break off of the family, isn't it? It's trying to keep our children away from loving families who want lesbian children, bisexual children, not children, but teenagers. I'm talking about teenagers, not kindergarten. We should not be talking about sexual orientation to kindergarten. I have a little one, but my teenager, she's 15. Yeah, we should be able to talk about sexual orientation.
Sure.
But that's ruined as well. That's harmful. They see this
Right.
religion that the teachers are pushing, also see that as harmful. And my poor girl had exactly the same. Lesbians suck penis. It's utterly horrifying that is the new religion. And
It is. And religion is a really good word for it, because the way you are not permitted to question it, you're not permitted to opt out. You just can't say, that's fine for you, but I'm not interested. That's what fundamentalists do. That's not even a normal, sane, reformed religion. That's like a fundamentalist or a cult where any dissent is not allowed. And so the other things that cults do is they promote an illusion of comfort, but it is an illusion. So they take people who, and now again, I'll leave off from the young kids. That's a particular concern of mine, but let's go to the teenagers. It is perfectly normal for teenagers to feel all kinds of conflict. I mean, you're evolving as a person and you're going through changes, and it's totally normal. And the goal, I think of most parents is just to love their children through this process and let them become who they're going to become. And, just be like, whoever you are, I love you. You're my child. Okay. But in school, what they're doing is they're creating this illusion. They're creating discomfort artificially with this social emotional learning. They're suggesting that their parents are liars. They're suggesting all kinds of things. So they feel sort of discomfort. Then they come in with the savior thing. This is where you're safe. This is where you can be most comfortable with us, and so forth. And that's what cults do. So they're actively trying to replace the parent as the source of comfort and love. And that to me is abuse. It's tearing families apart. It's abusive to the child. So I'm coming at it from the school, like as a teacher or former teacher at this point, but from a school point of view, from trying to raise awareness to parents of like, this is happening inside your school. It's not just the peers. The teachers are doing it too. The teachers have been empowered to do this. They're getting praised for doing it. It's socially acceptable. We are normalizing what I consider to be child abuse. And parents need to know that it's happening so they can say, no, stop doing this.
Deb, we have the same with Stonewall. It's the same rhetoric, and they make the teenagers. Our local pride group make the teenagers. It's like reading a teenager's diary. They will be so embarrassed in 10 years' time, sharing their emotions. And I just think, why couldn't you just give them a diary, not publicize it? Don't put them on Instagram. Their thoughts and feelings. And we are your new family. We will be your family now.
Exactly. That's exactly it. And so, anyway, that's kind of what I wanted to share from the US perspective. It's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing it baked into the curriculum and sort of buzzwords and things that parents don't recognize. That's why I say social emotional learning. When they talk about queer affirming, trans affirming, these kinds of curricula, they're giving kids books, little kid picture books about these topics. There is a sex ed program that currently is approved from 10 years old on that many districts are trying to get approved down to kindergarten that has explicit pictures of sex. It is pornographic, quite literally, because not only does it show the explicit pictures of activities that are going on, but it has a how-to and a how-to of to, have pleasure. A 5-year-old does it. A 10-year-old does it. This, and parents are. If you try to opt your child out of it because you don't think they're emotionally ready, you're a terrible person. You're a hater. You're a Puritan.
Okay.
And again, emphasizes queer and trans above all else. So that's what I can report from this side of the ocean. Did you hear me, or did it get cut out? I don't know.
Yeah, sharing that with us. It was absolutely terrifying, all of it.
Yeah. So thank you. And thank you guys for having me on. And I wish I didn't have to ditch out, but I have to go pick up my eldest from her job. So, but thank you so much.
Okay.
And I'm really so in awe of the courage of the people here, especially Joan and Thistle. And I wish you all the best, and you have 100% of my support. And if there's anything else I can do with my platform, please feel free to share information with me. I'd love to broadcast it out and get you as much support as possible. Okay.
Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. You're so welcome. Thank you guys.
Thank you, Deb.
Bye.
See you later.
Bye.
Okay, so I'm at the right time to try and bring in a special guest that we have called Andrea Nobra. No, she'll correct me on her name. She's a radical feminist journalist and author of the book The Grumpy Guide to Radical. Really patronising, like I'm on a kids program, but I didn't mean it like that. Oh no, I've just got a message from her. Actually, she said her internet and devices are failing her tonight. So I'm really sorry for being a tease there and saying that we're going to bring Andrea in. We can give her a go. I'll give her. No, I can't. I can't see her. Oh, here we go.
Maybe next time.
Sorry, I'll give her a go. Hey, Andrea, how are you getting on?
Hi, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
But there's an echo and a delay.
Yeah.
Yes, my
Yeah, you need
device is
to.
failing me.
Have you got the speakers on?
The microphone did it work?
Oh, I see. Okay. So if I don't talk to you for a minute and you just tell us what you have to say, maybe we can try that for a minute and see how you get on, yeah?
Okay, so I was called here today to talk about a bit that is going on now about the attacks on feminists the last weekend. So I was also called here to talk about a bit about the laws in Spain. So I'm just going to have to explain it that I am not Spanish and I don't know everything about it. I don't know what I was researching for my last piece for women publication, which is so far they have a first for the self-ID laws in Spain. So you now go to steps they're going to take.
I'm really. I don't know what was happening there. It was really, really. The connection was going too much. So I think what we'll do is maybe try and bring Andrea back another time. Yeah.
Yeah, next time, definitely. We have to hear from her. She's the writer of the Grumpy Guide to Feminism, is that right?
Yeah, Grumpy Guide to Radical Feminism.
On my to read
Yeah,
list.
she's a good one. Yeah, it's on my to read list as well. So maybe everyone should put it on their to read list, okay? So Chinzia, what have you got for us?
Right, so I'm just going to briefly chat about what happened on Sunday. We were it was the Standing for Women event at Speaker's Corner, and then we went on to the New Zealand Embassy, just to say that Standing for Women are the business. They really are a safe pair of hands, and you feel safe with Posey and Dr. Julia Long. They're an amazing team, and they put on an amazing day for all of us. Just a few standouts. Phoebe from the Cambridge Radical Feminist Network. She gave a speech. Please find her on YouTube. She's ever so young and, old head on young shoulders. She's going to go far. So keep an eye on for Phoebe. Right. So the Speaker's Corner event, we had all the speeches and then we went to the New Zealand Embassy. And we look up, and what we saw facing us was biblical coming towards us, this mass of people. Yeah. And we stood our ground. We all stood like true suffragettes, just facing it. And what came towards us was just electric. They embraced us. And so it was Save Our Scene UK. They were ravers, they want to dance. They want to dance. They want their venues back open. And they came towards us. We were getting high fives, cheers. They were amazing. The footage is it shows you they were so amazing and so friendly. And we just came together really. The New Zealand Embassy was our podium, and I can't tell you, it was so electric. So it was a freedom to dance and a freedom to fight for female rights. And Bums are yellow club angel.
She's got penis.
Oh, that was so amazing. So she was our yellow-haired club angel that walked over and she tore up the rule book. Totally got it, and she's an icon. That's an iconic moment. That picture of her with that's what I call a dick pic. Yeah, she was just in sweet harmony with us. Came away like a festival. It was a festival feeling. We were there with Janice and Mary from Object. Who else was there? Katie and Chloe, Kira Bell, all ages, all together, and we became one. We were a true tribe, and it was a real festival feeling. And we were very lucky compared to what happened in Spain and France. We were so lucky, and the ravers, they got it. The ravers got it. Working class. Yeah, it was amazing.
Can I ask you something? Wasn't the demonstration outside of the New Zealand embassy about women's sports?
Absolutely.
Right?
Sorry, yeah.
And so these pride parades, these pride demonstrations, that's a different type of crowd that's assembled. I feel like, at least in the United States, most people understand that women's sports should remain for women only, and it's a pretty easy way to pique trans people to talk about sports. It's not as unpleasant and horrible as mutilation surgeries, you know what I mean? And people over here are like, yay, rah, rah sports, and have like this sense of fairness, and it feels violated by Laurel Hubbard. And so I think maybe that might be why your protest was embraced.
Well, also, I did notice no fetish, compared to a pride march. Not one of those working class kids, there was no fetish anywhere. No kill women, punch women, kill JKR. What a refreshing crowd. I used to be a clubber years ago, and we've got our feet on the ground, and we just want to dance and be peaceful, love everyone, and they really did show us the love. We were so lucky, and they got it. And we had pictures of Hubbard, and you can see he's a man. There's no denying what he is. But yeah, what an event, and we were just incredibly lucky, and I'm sure I'm going to go again. We won't hit them again, but they were amazing. And yeah, we will not stop. Standing for Women will not stop. Posey is a trooper, and I think she'll do it. She will ban this. She will get this stopped. Get out, Laurel.
Hopefully. I think maybe I think one good thing that come out of that is all these ravers now know because they joined in. So now you've got what was there? At least 20 or 30 people there that have joined.
Oh, there must have been. They reckon it was about 100,000 out that day in the streets of London, walking past us. It took an hour for a big portion to walk past us, and the exposure that we got, and it was just overwhelming. Just yes, and we agree with you. So, just the normal people agree. Normal, everyday people get us.
That's great. Were you passing out flyers as they went by? Did you have enough flyers?
I think a few women did have flyers, but no, it really was just the placards. As soon as our yellow-haired club angel came over, all the photographers came out.
Right, everybody's taking pictures.
Yeah. They're taking that home. People were filming us. So those clubbers are going to go home and, relive that, remember it, and they got it. And it was just such an amazing day.
That's really great. That's great.
So lucky. It was a real festival.
Bring them to the pride.
Phenomenal.
I mean, I feel like those same people, once they get it in the sports arena, maybe they could also get it in the lesbian arena as well, and how all the harms that are happening in these more. I mean, sports are serious. I don't want to diss sports, obviously, but when you're talking about children getting mutilated, that's. Ooh, and lesbians being harassed, and our boundaries being violated. So we need to increase the numbers in that arena too. Hopefully, most people are in favor of lesbians being autonomous and same-sex attracted, and that shouldn't bother anyone. That shouldn't. It's really not their business. So.
Well, this podcast shows you that we are united. We're all over the world and we are united and we are going to fight this, and we fight for lesbians. Of course we do.
Right.
Absolutely. Does anyone else care before we wrap this up? No? Everybody's completely out-talked.
What did you say?
I asked if anybody had anything else to share before we wrap this up.
Before we wrap it up.
Anything else you'd like to say about what's been happening and what you've spoken about tonight? Because I feel like at some points the conversation did get rolling, and then I went, we need to talk. If anybody feels like there's anything else left over to say, now's the time.
I'm okay.
Check out, I'll just repeat, check out this new feminist anthology. Angela Wilde has an essay in there. Sheila Jeffries, all the greats are in here, but then also lesser known women. It just came out. And check out my music, and support independent female artists, especially those of us who've been blacklisted for no good reason, that had nothing to do with the music at all. Just support us. So
absolutely. Of course we do. You'll be on our Twitter feed tomorrow. I'm in charge, so I'll be tweeting you out.
Be on my Twitter feed as well.
Or tracked on our website and on our Instagram page. You can find it everywhere. Yes.
And is that to sign up with your group, Joan?
What?
And what was it that you just showed us? What was that?
It was the tract that we were giving to everyone passing by during the Pride. Yes, yes. Flyers.
Cool.
Okay, well, thank you so much for coming to talk to us. I think it's been an absolutely fascinating chat as well. Some of it's been a bit more scary than sometimes, I don't know about you guys, but I forget how devastating this actually is sometimes, because I'm just so used to thinking about it and talking about it that I forget that it's such a serious and so many layers, and it's affecting so many people all at once, if that makes sense.
Joan, can you give us one of your slogans in French, please? Come on, shout them out.
Oh, that'd be brilliant.
Do you want me to show it in French or in English?
In French.
In French? Okay, so lesbiennes, pas queer, on existe. Qu'est-ce que les lesbiennes n'ont pas? Des pénis. Qu'est-ce que les lesbiennes n'aiment pas? Les pénis. Mastectomie, misogynie. Une femme non féminine n'est pas un homme. Un homme en jupe n'est pas une femme.
Yeah.
That's wicked.
Oh,
I'm so much better than the Essex. Essex, it'd just be like, oi, get out of here, you slag.
I know, it sounds beautiful.
This just sounds so much better.
You made me cry. Just so brilliant.
Oh, Chinzia.
No. Just so brave. True resistance.
Proper.
Resistance.
Thank you.
I think you're both brilliant. I think everyone that's been here tonight has been absolutely fantastic. So good.
We have Birdy, and I have to say, Birdy, are you from the same region that Magdalene is from?
I don't know where Magdalene was from. I'm from Essex.
Okay, because
I'm not sure where Magdalene was.
Your accent, was she Scottish? She wasn't. Was she Scottish?
She was in university in Edinburgh, I believe, and she faced a lot of trouble from her feminist. The university feminist society were awful to her. don't know where she's
Yeah.
from. I'm so sorry.
Just listening to you talk, Birdie, it's reminded me of her in a comforting, cool way, like not in a creepy way. And it's cool to hear that accent. To me, that's what it sounds like.
Yeah, it's got to be some sort of regional thing. Maybe she was Southern England, maybe.
Oh, memories of Magdalene. She was lovely.
Yeah, I know.
What a woman.
Magdalene forever.
Yeah, absolutely.
She piqued so many people. I was
Me
just talking to a woman today, and her son was transgendering, and she was trying to keep up with him and the literature and trying to do the right thing and be supportive and all this stuff. And she was kind of like, this doesn't quite feel right. I don't know what it is. And then she found Magdalene somehow, watched one video, and she was like, oh, this is all wrong. And now she's a radical feminist activist, you know. So Magdalene with just one video, you know.
That's so good.
She cut right through it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she's very, very good with clarity.
Mm-hmm.
And so funny.
Well,
She was so funny. She was a comedian. She made
So
us
funny and so confident.
made us cry. I mean, she was very talented and lives on because, you know, we have all these awesome videos that she made that are still totally relevant. I bet she's still piquing people.
definitely is. I would say so.
Much missed.
But that's
And
a lovely.
she lives through you now. She lives through, you know, the next generation of lesbians, and she's there, you know, to look up to. She's an icon.
I'd go so as far to say that, like, Magdalene wasn't just speaking her opinion; she was speaking the universal women's voice. Does that make sense? She's speaking universally. So when you listen to her, you resonate with it and you understand it because it is what we all think. Even if we don't realise that that's what we think, and then we peak from it because that is what we think. So I think that's a lovely note to end this on. Thank you very much here. Well, thank you very much for you coming to us, I suppose. But yeah, I think that's a nice place to end it.
Thank you, Birdie. And it's
Thank
wonderful.
you so much.
That's all right.
Wonderful to share a show with you, Joan. Great job over there in France, and nice to meet you, Chinzia.
And you.
Nice to meet all of you. It was amazing.